Hi everyone and welcome back. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And in this video, we are going to talk about T3 stack. I mean, it is just like the same. We are just adding the new things. We have already talked about the Prisma Next.js. And now in this video, we will also include tRPC in our videos. So we will just get started and we will see how we can attach the tRPC server with the Next.js route handlers. So we already have a Next.js, we have a TypeScript, we have a Tailwind, we have Prisma, and we will just add this tRPC also. So npx create t3 app latest. This is the command which you will run to create a simple t3 app. T3 app is just like another stack or just a combination of these technologies like Next.js, Prisma for the ORM, NextAuth for the authentication, and tRPC for handling some of the API routes. So you just answer a couple of questions and it will give you all this particular setup, which contains NextAuth, Prisma, Tailwind, tRPC, and this environment variables, right? So we already know how we have used NextAuth. We already know the Prisma. The new thing in this particular video is how to work with tRPC. So we have already explored a video how to just create a simple tRPC server with the Express. So we have Express application in the Node.js and I wanted to create a tRPC. So what we were doing, we were just using this tRPC adapter and attaching the tRPC router to a particular Express route. This is basically we were doing. Same thing we are going to do here in the Next.js. Some of the API routes in the Next.js will be handled by this tRPC router. So I did pnpm install, so everything is done. And now we are going to look into this particular folder, which is this T3 nodes app. And we will see this Prisma schema file. This is auto generated. I mean, this is a scaffolding which has been generated through the T3 stack. It's nothing new. So we will just change the database URL and a couple of variables, because database we are going to use a Postgres, not SQLite. SQLite is a file based. You can also use SQLite and do everything as it is. But if you want to just have the feeling of real tables and all, then you can just use this Postgres. Postgres is there on we can create a Postgres container using Docker Compose up. We already have a Docker Compose YAML file. When you do Docker Compose up, we will have this container up and running. So we will just replace the database URL now. Because we have the container, we can just replace the database URL. So localhost, this is 5432 some database. And here we will just replace the SQLite with the Postgres SQL. And we can also see all the different models, because these models has been initialized by this T3 stack and NextAuth. Because when you see, there are two approach. We can use NextAuth using database strategy and JWT strategy. Database strategy, that means you wanted to persist the user login session in the database. Then you will just register these adapters like Prisma adapter, TypeORM adapter with the NextAuth. That will help you to persist the user session and the user data in your own database. So if you just log in with the Google, log in with the Twitter, log in with the Facebook, what is happening? It is happening on the fly. If you're not using these Prisma adapters, then you don't need to store that credentials. This NextAuth will just give you the session token, and your token will be established when you are doing login with the GitHub, Instagram and all. But when you also want to store the session and store the user information in your database, then you can use these adapters. And these adapters will store the user data with the session information. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create a nodes. So we will have two different other models with the user. We are going to have a topics and nodes. So topic is like Node.js, React, microservices, Next.js. These are topics. And nodes, like I am creating a simple nodes for each and every technology. So nodes will be a foreign key. Nodes will be nodes and topics. Topics and nodes will have a one-to-many relationship. Means the nodes will have a foreign key of the topic's primary key. So it's like a one-to-many relationship we are going to have. And topics will have a user ID as a foreign key. So you can see here I'm just specifying user relations, fields is user ID, and reference is the ID. That means the user table ID as a primary key will act as a user ID in the foreign key in the topics. And here we can see user ID and the nodes. Then we will have another model nodes. So the nodes model will have the same set of fields, but the relationship, for the relationship it will be one to many. That means the nodes will have a topic ID. Topic ID is a foreign key, which is a primary key in the topics table, that will act as a foreign key in the nodes table. So it's like a same one to many relationship, primary key, foreign key constraint, which we have in the relational database like MySQL, Postgres, Oracle and all. So here we are just specifying topic ID. Topic ID will be a foreign key. So here we are just going to specify the relations. Topic is of type topic @ relations, and field, that is the topic ID, which will be referenced with the ID of topic table. And what you will do after this, if your schema is valid, you should be able to run the migration. How we do it? npx prisma migrate. That is like a basic simple command which we can execute. So here we are doing npx prisma migrate dev. Okay, and you can see there is some error. Okay, the user in the model topic. Okay, so we have to specify the relationship both way. Like user will have a topics will have a user reference. So we forgot to add the topics in the user model. So user will also have a topics here of type topic array. So that is the relationship which we forgot, and that is complaining when Prisma try to run the migration. It will first validate your Prisma schema file. And now I did Prisma migrate dev. So it has created this migration SQL file that contains all the SQL statement it has executed. You can see it has created all the tables, and then later it has created these primary key, foreign key relationships, like user ID is a foreign key in the topics, topic ID is a foreign key inside the nodes. So these foreign key also getting created. So when you do migrate dev, it is actually applying these SQLs to the table, so that you are having all these tables and the relationships created inside the table. Okay, so we will replace this with the GitHub client ID and the GitHub client secret. So this is schema, this is env, like these environment variables needs to be there before you start your application. So even if we are missing something in the env, it will throw an error and we will know that, okay, this is the required variables you are not passing, and it will break the build. Okay, so we need to just fix this with the GitHub client ID. These are the runtime environment variables, because we are going to use GitHub providers. And how to get this client ID and a client secret, I will just explain that. You can go to your GitHub and developer settings, and you can create a new auth app. There you just need to provide the name and your callback URL. That is really important, and it will give you the client ID and the client secret, which you can just pass here and have this GitHub authentication enabled using NextAuth, because NextAuth can be attached with all these social providers: GitHub, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. What you need to do is you need to provide the auth credentials, like the client ID and a client secret, from the Google Developer Console, from the Twitter Developer Console, from the GitHub developer settings. So this is how it is going to work. We already have a Next.js 13.x, and we are going to use a NextAuth, and we have this Prisma. So Prisma is actually an ORM which we are going to use to read and write to the database, and this tRPC router. So how we are going to plug all these things? There will be a request coming from this React, coming from the UI components, like a Next.js server-side components. You will be sending a request. Authentication will be done by NextAuth, and this tRPC router is going to respond to all the /tRPC request. So it's not like we are exposing. So this Next.js route handler is attaching this tRPC route, this tRPC handler, And you can also build your own API routes if you want. Like in the API, you can just create your API profile, API login, or whatever you want. It's just tRPC is just a one part of Next.js API routes. Like for the Next.js APIs for a particular path, I want to handle that through this tRPC route handler. And this tRPC route handler will be using this tRPC router to expose the methods, because it's tRPC. It's not REST APIs where where you will define the resource path and the methods get, put, post, delete. Okay, so we are using GitHub Auth using NextAuth, and we are using this database adapter using Prisma. So here what we are doing is NextAuth is using Prisma to read write the session information, because there are two strategies, JWT or the database strategy. Database strategies means you wanted to store the session information on the database, and once you log out, the session information will be removed from the database. So we are using this NextAuth library for enabling the authentication in our application. For the tRPC, we are using this tRPC route handler. And now if you look into our code, so inside the source, we can see this is our package JSON, which contains the Prisma client and lots of dependencies related to the tRPC server and tRPC client. Then NextAuth, React DOM, and all the types. Types contains the ESLint, prettier, and all. And this is our server, and this contains the tRPC. This is the authentication, NextAuth options, which contains the callback adapter. We are using Prisma adapter, and this should not be a Discord provider. We should be using GitHub provider here, and it is using GitHub client ID and the GitHub client secret. Okay, so this is our auth, and inside API folder inside server, we are writing all the APIs. And this is the env.mjs, which is specifying all the environment variables we have, which we are passing to the runtime. And this file is actually doing the validation with the help of Jod. And this is our NextAuth configurations, and here we are passing the NextAuth to this handler. So NextAuth should be able to handle your login, logout, all these different callback calls, because it is able to handle all these. And this is the Prisma client, same good old code, creating the Prisma client on the development, or register this Prisma client to the global object. Otherwise, if it is not equal to production, then do this. Otherwise, just use the Prisma client. And these are the example router, because this is the example setup. And you can see here, this is the tRPC. And in the tRPC also, we are just accessing this server side session, gets a server session. If the session exists, then only you should be able to access these APIs, because these are the protected APIs. So you can create this kind of a middleware with the tRPC that only if the NextAuth session exists at the server side, then only allow user to access. So here, this is the example router. Now we are going to create our own router, like nodes and the topics. So this is the nodes, this is the nodes router, and we are going to create topics.ts. Okay, and all the configurations are already there, like creating the tRPC context, creating the tRPC router. Now we just need to add these two more routers, like the topic routers and nodes router, because example router is already coming with this T3 stack scaffolding, example router, and all these methods. So here we will define the methods, and this can be a public procedure or the private procedure. Private procedure, that means you should only be able to access it only if you have already logged in, means server side session exists. So tRPC is exposing this public procedure and the private procedure, and this is like a one-to-many relationship between topics and then the nodes. So what all methods we are exposing through the tRPC. So we have a create topic and fetch all topic. In the nodes, create node, update node, delete node, right? And we already know that topics and the nodes has a one-to-many relationship. One topic can have multiple nodes, and like topic is Node.js. Node.js can have multiple nodes written for the Node.js. Similarly, for the React, you have created a nodes about React hooks, React latest changes, React 18.x, React context APIs. All these will become nodes. So it's like one-to-many relationship we have in the topics and the nodes. So how we are going to do with that? So we can just here create tRPC router. So we'll just go inside the tRPC and we will see what public procedure and the protected procedure we are using. So there is a two things being exposed by tRPC. tRPC is returning as public procedure, private procedure, middleware, and router. Here what we are using? We are using this protected procedure. That means it is using some middleware in the tRPC context, which is checking that your server-side session exists from the NextAuth or not. If the session doesn't exist, it won't allow you to access this. So if you talk about the tRPC, don't think that it's a complex and we are just having a hard time in understanding this. No, it's a simplified process. Even the whole skeleton code is there. In the tRPC context, we are passing both the properties, session and the Prisma object, model object. So if you, and we are passing this context in the query and the mutation. So query means I wanted to fetch the data. Mutation means we are changing the state. So query means I wanted to fetch all the topics. So context, whatever the context you are passing, that will contains two things: context.session.user, context.prisma. And from the Prisma, we already have access to these models: context.prisma.model name dot this type Prisma operations like find many, find unique, update, create. All these operations you can perform. Here we are creating, here we are fetching. So how to fetch? Prisma.topics.findMany, where user ID is this. So whatever the topics you have created, you should be able to fetch them. And the other thing is, you can see this is protected procedure, and we are using this enforce user is auth. Means user context.session.user must be there, then only it will allow you to access. So this is the protected procedure we are exposing. And inside a context, we are adding the user object also if your session exists. So context already contains the Prisma and the session, and also it's adding the user object there. So in the context.user, it would be able to give you the user from the session. And then here other like topic.create, topic.fetch, these are the two methods we have. So first we are building the backend. Backend means we are building the Next.js API routes, which is going to consume this tRPC server. And here we can do all these different operations, create and get. So create, so how it works, like the procedures we are defining here. So all the methods we are defining inside a router. You will have a method name dot query. Even before that, there is an input. Input means if you want to validate your payload. So query dot input. So protected procedure dot input dot query or mutation. Protected procedure dot input means this is my payload object. Dot mutation means I wanted to change the state. I means I'm saving some data, right? So I'm just creating. It's all about create, update, delete. You will use mutations, but when it comes to fetch, we are going to use query. So protected procedure dot query, pass the context and access the Prisma. If protected procedure dot input dot mutation, here we are accessing the Prisma to read and write in the database. So that is the difference. Like here we have a nodes, here we have a nodes and the topics. So nodes is like another entity, another model after the topics, which contains the topic ID as a foreign key in the nodes. So once you created a topic, you should be able to create the topic also against those particular topics. So their topic ID will become a foreign key. So here instead of nodes router, we will also write. So topic router we are done. So we are creating nodes router, and we will define all the methods like create, update, delete, fetch all the topics, fetch all the nodes for a particular topic ID. Okay, so here we are doing data validations. Here we are creating a nodes. So like I need to get all the nodes. So all these APIs will be there. I mean, these are not actually API, these are the methods. Give me all the nodes based on the input. Input contains the topic ID. That means give me all the nodes created for this topic ID. So it's just like I need to do a where clause using Prisma utility, like where topic ID equal to contact topic ID equal to input dot topic ID. So that is all about get all. give me all the nodes for this particular topic ID, right? So topic ID is actually a primary key which is acting as a foreign key in the nodes table. So we are just passing the topic ID, and based on the where clause in the Prisma, we can just fetch all the nodes created for a particular topic. Let's say you have created a multiple nodes for the Node.js. So you will be passing a Node.js topic ID. And similarly, we can do other methods like create node, update node, and delete node. So these are like a couple of APIs we have. So I will just try to skip forward this, which we have, because we already have discussed this, how we are doing in the topics. So similarly, we are going to do the create, and inside the create, we are passing title and the content and the topic ID. So these are the three different properties we are passing in an object. So this is how we will do the validation in the create input, and this is an object and doing the mutation. Here we are doing the mutation and context.prisma.model name node.create, and we are passing all the properties, title, content, and the topic ID. So it will create your nodes. So these are the different methods we have. And then finally, we have to register all of these inside this particular router. So here we are saying is create tRPC router, and we are passing example router, topic, and the nodes, because we already have all the methods defined in the topic router for the topics. Nodes router contains all the methods for the nodes. Now we are just combining them and creating a root router, and also exposing the types here, which can be used by this tRPC client. And here you can see we are using this NextAuth options Prisma adapter, which contains the providers and adapters. So inside this, we are passing the Prisma. Prisma is actually a Prisma client. We are passing in the Prisma adapter. And these are the NextAuth options. Like I'm just going through some of the files which you can see in this particular stack. Here we have a tRPC auth.js, and these are the different options which you can pass in auth options, NextAuth options. So strategy, JWT or the database, pages, callbacks, adapters you can specify. Debug, if you want to debug each and everything, it will just put more console log, more log messages on your screen if you do it like this. And then you can also pass your custom logger if you have. And then here is the theme, and then use cookies and all. So all these options you can pass in the NextAuth. Okay, now next important thing is we already have this Prisma migration done. That means we already have all the tables. So I will just do npm run dev, and I do see some errors. So let's try to debug this. What is this particular error is talking about? So this is saying is GitHub client ID required. Okay, I have passed the GitHub client ID and client secret. So you need to check your .env file, and you need to pass both these parameters. So I copied them and I just pasted, and this is how you will get the GitHub client ID and a client secret. So you go to the GitHub developer console, create your Auth app. And here I have started my server on 3000, and let's see how we are doing authentication. It's like a simple showcase. So I will just go to, so this is a localhost 3000. You just reload it and try to log in. And it is saying login with the Discord. It should show login with the GitHub, right? So something is wrong. We are not using maybe the correct provider in our NextAuth options, or while doing a sign in, are we passing anything else? So let me check the code, what we are using for what is happening underneath this particular button, right? So we are just clicking on to the sign in, and sign in is helping us. Sign in is looking into all the providers which are available, and based on that it is giving us the options. So if you see there is a Google provider and GitHub, Facebook, then it will give you 3 buttons. If currently we are using only GitHub as the provider, so that means it should show you the GitHub. So we will just check our NextAuth, and there we will try to find out where is this problem is. Here we are using Discord provider, so this is the bug. So we need to fix it by using GitHub provider, and we need to import GitHub provider from the providers. So you can see all these providers are available: Auth0, GitHub, Facebook, Twitter. We are selecting GitHub provider. So now I will just try to save it and try to run the application again. And okay, so let's try to run the application again. And now we are passing this as a GitHub provider with the GitHub client ID and a secret. We'll go to the home page, sign in with the GitHub, and now it works, right? I can see the GitHub button and now it has logged in. If it has logged in, that's why it is showing me my name and a post login message that you successfully logged in, and all these things are happening. You see all the Prisma queries which is being executed. So that is important, how this particular session is being maintained at the client end side. So I did a logout, and now I'm doing a login, and I will check what session are we getting when once user is doing a login. So how we are getting this session token at the client side. So when I do the login, here I did the login, and it will just generate a particular cookies, that is NextAuth session token. So this is CSRF token, and then there is a session token. These are the tokens which has been returned in form of cookies by the NextAuth. They are managing the session at the client end side. Okay, now also you see, check the queries. So what it is doing, it is also when you're doing the login first, these are the tables we have, right? Sessions, user, account, verification token, and all. So this is the account created for the login. Here it is, we did the login using GitHub. So it is also saving my user data because we are using Prisma adapter. So Prisma will store all this user information in the user table. And then you can see there is a session token. So this is how we are persisting the session of the user. Once you do the logout, this particular record is getting empty. This particular table is getting, that record is getting deleted. That's what I mean. Okay, and this record is appeared again. This is how we are storing the session token returned by the NextAuth in the database, because we are using Prisma adapter. I mean, it depends on your choice. You can just keep using any adapter and just use this GWT strategy, which will just generate a token and it will return to the client side. But we will not be storing anything about the state of the token in the database. So these are two strategy, GWT strategy and database based strategy. Okay, so let's start building the components. So what are the common components we see in the application, like header, footer, and sidebar, new bar? If you have, these are like some of the components which you can build. Here the components we are going to decide based on our UI. So on the UI we can see there is a text editor, and then inside a sidebar we are showing all the tags. So I can see notes editor and the notes card, because it's like if you look into this application, it's like a to-do app. There is some form, you enter, submit the information, save it, that to-do application needs to appear somewhere. Here we have these topics and the notes. So topics will be shown inside a particular list. You will select a topic and then you will start adding the notes on that particular topic ID. So your information is your code looks kind of similar. Now if you try to structure our components and pages, here we are using session provider because we are getting session from NextAuth. So this is how you will wrap your root component and pass the session to all the child components. So here we can just clean this up because we don't need all of these, and we will start adding our client components. Okay, because we need to show simple UI with the topics list and then notes create form and the notes list. These are the three components which I can remember. We have a notes list. If you can see this UI, we have a topic list in the left, then there is a notes list using notes card, and this is the form which contains the two input text fields, right? So, and these are the just tags, like topic tags, which you can create. So I can see header, notes card, and notes list. All these components I see we should be able to create. Note card, note editor, and the header. These are the reusable components. And now we will just start writing our JSX. So here I can see header and the content. So because header we already have, and the content is the component which we can create. So header is on the top, and there is a content component, and content component is going to import our rest of the components which we need to show on the screen. So first of all, you will get the session data. Session data is equal to use session. Use session is the hook which you can add in your components to access the current session data. So all these things we can do, and what it is going to return some JSX. So this JSX will be all the things about what we are going to show on that particular screen. So here we will try to put the header component from, so we already created alias, so components header. So this is our header component, and then we are initializing the session using use session. So all the components we can import here, note editor and note card. And this is a kind of a layout which we have created, like okay, this is the 4-column grid structure. In the first column we are going to have this topic list, and in the rest 3 columns we are going to show the note card and this form component. Okay, so let's see the note card, note editor and header component, and here you can see I have grid column 4, and then this is the first column, and then second column is a column span 3. I mean the 3-column width is for the second column, and the first column is only for the remaining column width, which is 1. So here we are just going to do ULLI. I mean it's like a list we are showing, and that particular list should be able to clickable because we are selecting a topic here whenever user clicks on it, clicks on that. So here in the first left sidebar we will be getting all the topics. So how can we fetch the topics? That is important. This is how we will be understanding how we are using these use query hooks to fetch the data from the APIs. So here we have a data which we can get using API dot. So I think this is like we are going to access some query, like fetch all the topics that exists, right? So we can just use API dot tRPC. So what we are exposing through the types app router. Okay, let's see that. So we are just checking the APIs, how we are doing the client integration, like component integration. And here we are creating the APIs and the API data. So we are getting the topics. So how would we access the APIs? So let me see, we need to import the APIs first. So here you can see API.notes dot, because now I can see the Prisma API methods are populated on the notes model. So this is how we can do it. So this is about fetching the data. So API.topics.get all, that is actually a method name, and then it is doing query. Query means give me all the topics which has been created. So here we got all the topics, and then topics dot all these operations we can run to get the UI. So topics is an array, and we need to show that on the sidebar. And create topic is a mutation. So how we are doing API.topic.use mutation, and that contains on success callbook. So what should happen when you are succeeded? So we need to just refresh. So here we are just doing a refetch topics. Okay, so what is the next thing we are doing here is we got the data, and we are going to use this particular topics array. So here we have a create topic and list all the topics. These are like the list all topic is in a query, and this is a mutation. So I think this should be use mutation. Inside use mutations we can define your callback. So here these are the different methods we are going to have: create note, delete note, create topic. This is a use mutation, create, and on success refetch all the topics. So refetch all the topics is getting triggered whenever you are adding a new topic. And now you have the topics as an array. You can run a loop and can list down all the topics in the left sidebar. Okay, so we can just run a loop onto the topics, and for each and every iterations, this is going to create a on click event, because we need to select that topic which you have clicked on and pass the topic ID in our API. So whenever you are doing on click, we are doing set selected topics. That is a use state hook, and we are passing the topic name. So when you click onto it, the selected topics will be added to the state, and then that selected topic ID will be used for other APIs. So here this is input text field where you are entering the topic, and when you click on enter, that means you want to add the new topic in the system. So here we are just fixing this on key down. So there is an on key up method. On key down will be there, like you are just click on to the enter after entering the text field. That means you wanted to add that topic in your system. So we can just do create topic.mutate, and it contains like title will become event.target.value, and we can just say event.target.value. Okay, that will become empty, and event.current.target.value. So this is input text field. When you are clicking onto this, this will become empty. Okay, so this is all about all the components which we had. Now what we are going to do, we are going to just put remaining things inside this column span. So first column, we did lots of things with the NextAuth and Next.js and Prisma. And now this is another block where we are going to show the grid, where we can show. So this is the column span 3, means the right side of the particular page, and inside this we are going to have a nodes. So let's say if we have a list of nodes, so we can just do a nodes.map and can just try to publish the nodes information. Okay, here you can just do a node card information, node card object, and pass the particular node. Okay, so how we are doing it, node card. So here we have a node card component which is exposing on delete, means you wanted to delete a particular card, then delete node.mutate, which we have already defined on the top, and we are passing the node ID. Okay, so this is a simple our index.tsx, and here we are going to use a node editor. So here we have these two components, node editor and node card component. So let's say you already have a node list. We want to show that inside a node card, then we will be using node card component, and there is a header, simplified header, which is just nothing but a fixed height header, which doesn't have lots of menu options. So these are the subcomponents we are going to create: header, node card, node editor, and these components will be imported by index.tsx, because it's like a one single page where we have a node card component, node editor component, and in the leftmost we are just showing all the nodes, all the topics, name of the topics in a particular sidebar list. So this is a simple header we are creating, which is about creating a simple Tailwind header. Here we are using Tailwind and Daisy UI. Daisy UI is actually a Tailwind template library that has the nice set of classes which we can use to build the UI. And here you can see if session data.user is there, then if the user is logged in, then you don't need to show the sign in. You can just show the nodes application. If user is not logged in, then show the default text. Okay, so this is a simple our component, and here you can see when what we are doing is, so this is the username, and here we are just showing session data.user.name. If that is true, then just show the label information. So here you can see if the data is available, then show it, otherwise hide it. So that means like Once you logged in using NextAuth, your session would exist, and here we can check that you are logged in. Show the logout button. If you're not logged in, show you the login and the register button. This is how this is going to be. And then we have a note card and the note editor component. These are the only pure components and the major components we are going to build. Rest all the implementation is very easy. So here we are creating note editor. Note editor is just like input rich text fields where you just enter the details, and we should be able to submit it to the Next.js APIs because it's a server component. So here we are adding the typings, like note editor will have this own save method as a which is passed as a props. So once you enter the data inside a note editor, you should be able to, when you click on save, this information should be able to passed, and there we will call this onSave method, which is going to run the mutation onto the tRPC method, right? So what we are doing, we already have tRPC server. In the client side, we are just using this tRPC React or tRPC client library to trigger the query and trigger the mutations in the whole application. So here we will just get the code. This is like what you have entered in the particular rich text field. Okay, and then we have code and title. So set title, this is like a use state, how we are going to manage the state for the variables. And then we can just return our editor, like how the editor looks like. So we can start writing it. So it's like a card class, and then I think we can reuse some of the code. Here you can see header.tsx note card and note editor component. Let's say this is a note editor component. Okay, inside the note editor component, it's going to be a rich text field where you click on to the save. It should be able to save whatever the data is available. Okay, so here we are just going to specify the class, like okay, card title, and specify your card title. And okay, so here it is input type text. So here we have this simple note editor which is setting up the title. So these are like input text field which we already have, that is setting up the values in the sys state. Okay, and these are the input text field, and then there is another input text field which is going to be similar. So this is our note editor component, which is just using this rich text markdown, that whatever that content you are writing should be of markdown. So here we are using code mirror component for that. And when you do on save, what is happening is we need to populate the data. So this is my note editor component, which is when you are doing, which should be able to save it. And this is how we are doing a mutate, because here we are actually creating things. So we are using the mutation. And here we have this, all the other additional component, header, note card, note editor, and inside API we have index.ts. So this is like a very simple component to input text field. One is the code and another is the title. So whenever you are doing a change, we are triggering on change, populating this state, and then this data is being passed as a payload. Okay, so I can see that placeholder is a email username. Okay, so here we are creating all these nodes. Nodes has been created. These are the input text field, values title, on changes event object, and set title event dot target current target dot value. Okay, so this is our simple notes editor, right? So we need a note card, note editor, and the simple header. These are some of the components which we need, and here you can see we are just passing the buttons. And this is how we are doing the mutation. Create node dot mutate. We are passing title, content, and the topic ID. So we know that this is the new node has been created for this particular topic, and we will just save it, and we are also fetching it once it is done. So this is the node editor which is sending us both the parameters. So here we can see that these are the different methods. Let's say if you want to create the node, update the node, delete the node. So what we are doing, api.nodes.create, use mutation. So this is like update node, delete node, create node. And all the queries are also being triggered. So this is how it really looks like. Notes from Tarun, and this is we are using Tailwind CSS, but I will check why these styles are not getting applied. Here this is the left sidebar where we can create the topics, and in the right sidebar, right layout, we should be able to create the notes. So I just log in with the GitHub, and I think my session exists, and I can see these console messages happening through the tRPC server. And here I can create the topics. I should be able to create the topics from the left sidebar, and then we will check our UI why this is showing really old behavior. So here we can create a topic, Node.js, press enter, React, press enter, microservices, press enter. So we are able to create a multiple topics, and then when you click on individual topics, we should be able to fetch the results, whatever we have saved. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we are just creating all these tags, and then we will just create the nodes, and then we can also see the different list of the nodes. And now I will just start creating some random stuff which should be available. So here save, and then I can see we can just change the width and height of this particular, but somehow the styles are not getting applied. So we can also check the Tailwind config. This is how we are passing the Tailwind utilities, and we are importing this global.css, which is importing all the global Tailwind configs. And here we are not using any plugins. And this is like a default Tailwind, a Tailwind post CSS and all the configurations. And here we are using Daisy UI. So this is like a plugin which you need to add. And here I can see including the Daisy UI. And my UI totally changed because earlier the Daisy UI library or the plugin we were not using. That's why it was showing like this. Now we have added Daisy UI plugin, and our UI looks like this. And here we can create a tags for a particular topic. You select the topic and start creating the tags. You switch the topics, and you should be able to fetch the respective nodes you have created. So let's say you are using the Node.js. You will just enter the topic name, right? And you can also delete the tag which you have created. Okay, so what we are going to do, so this is all. This is how we are dealing with the whole implementation. So see you in the next video. In the next video, we are going to build another full stack application, which is going to use the same set of exciting these excited technologies. So thanks everyone. So this is all about this particular video. Here we have covered some concepts of the tRPC, how to create tRPC server, and how to attach tRPC to the Next.js handler, so that we can expose these tRPC methods, like which we have done for this from this nodes router and the topics router. and those we were consuming at the client side. So it's covering how we can do the client side integration and call these tRPC endpoints through the Next.js. Okay. Thank you everyone.